Hello, in this video tutorial we're going to use Photoshop Element 6 to create a variety of light beam effects, and we're going to use all sorts of tips and tricks to achieve this effect. So here's our shot of Central Park Station, and we're going to add beams of light using the gradient tool and this tool here to kick off with. Click and hold down and choose the polygonal lasso tool. Then what we'll do is create a new layer for our light beam. You'll find this image on the CD, by the way. It's called Light Beams Start. Click here to create a new layer, call it light beams, or in fact call it light beam because we're going to create a few. And once you've targeted that, go over to the tool box here. You can click and drag to make it float if you like, and that gives you a little bit more desk space to play with. And what we're going to do now is to draw a light beam. So we've got our tool, click and draw down onto the floor here, and then let's go a little bit wider for the perspective and down to about there, and that should do. And then to complete the beam, just click the last point on the first and you get the marching ants selection marquee. Now that's a little bit sharp edged for a light beam, so let's soften it by using the new refine edge tool here. Click on that and make sure you've got this icon clicked, which shows you the overlay color so you can see what the beam's looking like. And if we just zoom in a little bit using Control and Plus, we can see the edge of the beam there is looking okay, because I've already done this tutorial. So if you've got to set smooth to 5 and feather to 10.4, if I went up even further you could see it's a much softer edge, but 10.4, or rather 10 I should say, we're going to stick to the magazine version of the tutorial, is fine, and I can type in a value like so. And that softens the edge of the marquee selection to create a softer edged beam. Click OK to apply the change. Once you've softened the edge of the marquee, let's go to the gradient tool, which you'll find just here in the toolbox, and we need to modify that. So let's click here to set the foreground color. Let's choose white, click OK, and now we've got a kind of a white to a white. And now we'll go up to edit the gradient tool, and let's just tweak the values here. At the moment it's going from 100% to 100%, so let's change the opacity to about 70, and you can see now it's fading from solid through to transparent. Click OK to apply the change. So we've modified our gradient. You can see the preview there is changing now, and let's click on reflected gradient. This is the type of gradient we're going to draw. Make sure you've targeted the light beam layer. Control minus to zoom out so you can see the whole beam, and if you click and drag with the reflected gradient, let's try and keep it parallel. You can see there it's drawing it in different directions, but parallel with the main beam, and then it should fade at the edges. Now at the moment it's doing the opposite of what we want. It's actually solid at the edges and transparent in the middle, and that means you've got to go to reverse to change it, and then hit Control Z to undo the problem light beam. And now let's draw a new one. Click drag, slightly wider than the beam at the top here, and you can now see that it's fading at the edges and it's slightly more concentrated in the center, but it's still a bit offset. So Control Z one more time, and let's just try drawing that again. That's perfect. You can see a solid beam in the middle and a soft edge around the edges of the beam thanks to the reverse button up here. So Control D to deselect, and there's our first light beam. To make the beam fade, go over here and click on the new adjustment layer icon and choose levels. Click OK. Drag this below light beam. Move the mouse over to the gap between the two layers, hold down the Alt key to get the clipping group icon and click, and that should jump to the right like so. Target the layer mask here on levels and choose the gradient tool. This time let's just go back up to edit and choose the default foreground to background gradient. Click OK, and now choose the linear gradient option, and you can then click on this mask here and click drag from top to bottom and watch it fade. If it's doing the opposite, untick reverse, Control Z to undo, and now do that again, and this time the beam will fade as it gets to the bottom. If it's too strong the fade, then Control Z again, and then maybe just start a bit lower down like so. Now I've just jumped forward in time a little bit, and I've repeated the same techniques to add light beams to the other windows. And to make it more subtle, select the second light beam 2, reduce the opacity by about maybe 10%, 5 or 10% perhaps. Go to light beam 3, which is this one here, and let's make that one 80%, You can see as I drag it's changing them in the picture. So 80 should do there. And then maybe light beam 4, let's go for about 60. So it's fading out in the background, so it gives us more depth in the image as the light diffuses into the distance.